Ananda said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, as the Buddha has said, the resolve for enlightenment on the coarse ground which seeks the eternal must be in mutual accord with the ground of fruition. World-honored one, the ground of fruition is Bodhi, Nirvana, true suchness, the Buddha nature, the Amala consciousness, the empty treasury of the Daskam One, the great, perfect mirror wisdom. But although it is called by these 7 names, it is pure and perfect. Its substance is durable, like royal Vajra, everlasting and indestructible. If the seeing and hearing are apart from light and darkness, movement and stillness, and penetration and obstruction, and are ultimately devoid of substance, they are then like thoughts apart from sense objects. They do not exist at all. How can what is ultimately destroyed be a cause by which one cultivates, in the hope of obtaining the fruition of the Daskam One's 7-fold eternal abode? World-honored one, when it is apart from light and darkness, the seeing is ultimately empty. Just as when there is no sense object, the essence of thought is extinguished. I go back and forth in circles, minutely searching, and basically there is no such thing as my mind or its objects, just what should be used to seek the unsurpassed enlightenment. The Daskam One previously said it was a tranquil essence, perfect and eternal. His present contradiction defies belief and is a resort to idle theorizing. How can the Daskam One's words be true and actual? I only hope the Buddha will let fall his great compassion and will instruct us who do not understand and who are holding on tightly. The Buddha told Ananda, "You study and learn much, but you have not yet distinguished outflows. In your mind, you know only the causes of being upside down, but when the true inversion manifests, you really cannot recognize it yet. In order to strengthen your sincerity and faith, I will try to make use of an ordinary happening to dispel your doubts." Then the Daskam One instructed Rahula to strike a bell once, and he asked Ananda, "Did you hear that?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "We heard it." The bell ceased to sound, and the Buddha again asked, "Do you hear it now?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "We do not hear it." Then Rahula struck the bell again once. The Buddha again asked, "Do you hear it now?" Ananda and the great assembly again said, "We hear it." The Buddha asked Ananda, "What do you hear, and what do you not hear?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said to the Buddha, "When the bell is rung, we hear it. Once the sound of the bell ceases, so that even its echoes fades away, we do not hear it." The Daskam One again instructed Rahula to strike the bell, and he asked Ananda, "Is there sound now?" Ananda and the members of the great assembly all said, "There is sound." After a short time, the sound ceased, and the Buddha again asked, "Is there a sound now?" Ananda and the great assembly answered, "There is no sound." After a moment, Rahula again struck the bell, and the Buddha again asked, "Is there sound now?" Ananda and the great assembly said together, "There is sound." The Buddha asked Ananda, "What is meant by sound, and what is meant by no sound?" Ananda and the great assembly told the Buddha, "When the bell is struck, there is sound. Once the sound ceases, and even the echo fades away, there is said to be no sound. The Buddha said to Ananda and the Great Assembly, "Why are you inconsistent with what you say?" The Great Assembly and Ananda then asked the Buddha, "In what way have we been inconsistent?" The Buddha said, "When I asked if you were hearing, you said that you were hearing. Then when I asked if there was sound, you said there was sound. I cannot ascertain from your answers if it is hearing or if it is sound. How can you not say this is inconsistent?" Ananda, when the sound is gone without an echo, you say there is no hearing. If there were really no hearing, the hearing nature would be extinguished. It would be just like dead wood. If then the bell was sounded again, how would you know? What you know to be there or not there is a defiling object of sound. But could the hearing nature be there or not be there, depending on your perception of its being there or not? If the hearing could really not be there, what would perceive that it was not? And so, Ananda, the sounds that you hear are what are subject to production and extinction, not your hearing. The arising and cessation of sounds cause your hearing nature to be as if there or not there. You are so upside down that you mistake sound for hearing. No wonder you are so confused that you take what is everlasting for what is annihilated. Ultimately, you cannot say that there is no hearing nature apart from movement and stillness and from obstruction and penetration. Consider a person who falls into a deep sleep while napping on his bed. While he is asleep, someone in his house starts beating clothes or pounding rice. In his dream, the person hears the sound of beating and pounding and takes it for something else, perhaps the striking of a drum or the ringing of a bell. In the dream, he wonders why the bell sounds like stone or wood. Suddenly he awakens and immediately recognizes the sound of pounding. He tells the members of his household, "I was just having a dream in which I mistook the sound of pounding for the sound of a drum." Ananda, how can this person in a dream state remember stillness and motion, opening and closing, and penetrability and obstruction? Yet, although he is physically asleep, his hearing nature is not drowsy. Even when your body is gone and your light and life move on, how could this nature leave you? But because living beings from time without beginning have pursued forms and sounds, and have followed their thoughts as they turn and flow, they still are not aware that their nature is pure, wondrous, and everlasting. They do not accord with what is eternal, but chase after things which are subject to production and extinction. Because of this, they are born again and again, and become mixed with defilement as they flow and turn. But if they reject production and extinction, and uphold eternal truth, an everlasting light will appear, and with that the sense organs, defiling objects, and consciousnesses will disappear. The appearance of thought becomes defilement. The emotions of the consciousness become filth. If you stay far away from these two, then your Dharma eye will accordingly become pure and bright. How could you fail to accomplish unsurpassed knowledge and enlightenment? Ananda said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, the thus come one has explained the two meanings. Yet as I now contemplate people in the world, I believe that if they try to untie a knot and cannot find its center, they'll never get the knot undone. World-honored one, I and all the other sound hearers in the great assembly, who are not beyond learning, are the same way. From time without beginning, we have been accompanied in birth and death by ignorance. We have obtained these good roots of erudition and are said to have left the home life, yet in fact we act like someone with a recurrent fever. I only hope that you, the greatly compassionate one, will take pity on us. We are sinking and drowning, so that to this very day we do not know how our bodies and minds are in knots or how to go about untying them. Your explanation will also enable future living beings who are in suffering and difficulty to avoid the turning wheel and not fall into the three realms of existence. After saying this, he and the entire great assembly made full prostrations. He wept profusely and with sincere anticipation awaited the unsurpassed instruction of the Buddha, the thus come one. Then the world-honored one took pity on Ananda and on those in assembly with something left to study, as well as on living beings of the future, in order to help them transcend the world and become eyes for the future. He rubbed the crown of Ananda's head with his Jambunada purple golden bright hand. Instantaneously, all the Buddha lands in the 10 directions quake in 6 ways. Thus come ones, as numerous as fine motes of dust, each dwelling in his respective world, emitted a precious light from the crown of his head. At one and the same time, their light went from their own countries to the Jeta Grove and anointed the crown of thus come one's head. All in that great assembly obtained what they had never had before. Then Ananda and everyone in the great assembly heard the thus come ones, as numerous as fine motes of dust, throughout the 10 directions, speak to Ananda in unison. Good indeed, Ananda. You wish to recognize your innate ignorance that causes you to turn on the wheel. The origin of the knot of birth and death is simply your 6 sense organs and nothing else. You also want to understand unsurpassed Bodhi, so that you can quickly realize bliss, liberation, tranquility, and wonderful eternity. It too is your 6 sense organs and nothing else. Ananda heard these sounds of Dharma, but he did not yet understand in his mind. Bowing his head, he said to the Buddha, "How can what causes me to revolve in the cycle of birth and death, and what enables me to gain bliss and wonderful eternity, be the 6 sense organs in both cases and nothing else?" The Buddha said to Ananda, "The 6 sense organs and the objects are of the same source. The bonds and the release are not two. The nature of the consciousnesses is empty and false. It is like strange flowers in space." Ananda, sense awareness arises because of the sense objects. The appearance of objects exists because of the sense organs. The appearance and the perception, both devoid of a nature, support each other like intertwining reeds. Therefore, you now base your knowledge on awareness and perception, but that is fundamental ignorance, the absence of a view regarding awareness and perception is nirvana, the true purity of no outflows. How could there be anything else in the midst of it? Then the world-honored one, wishing to restate this meaning, spoke verses saying, "In the true nature, conditioned things are empty. They spring from causes, as illusions do. Things unconditioned neither rise nor cease. Unreal they are, like flowers in space. To speak of the false is to reveal the true, but both the false and the true are false themselves. If there is neither truth nor untruth, how can there be perceiver and perceived? Between them, the two in fact have no nature. Thus they are likened to intertwining reeds. The knots and the release have a common cause. The sages and ordinary people's paths are not two. Regard the nature of the intertwine. Emptiness, existence, both are not. Dark confusion is simply ignorance. Bringing it to light is liberation. The knots must be untied successively. When the six are released, even the one ceases to be. Select an organ preferred for perfect penetration. Enter the flow and realize proper enlightenment. Extremely subtle, the Adana consciousness makes patterns of habit that flow on its torrents. Fearing you will confuse the truth with what is not, I rarely tell you of all this. With your own mind, you grasp at your own mind. What is not illusory turns into illusion. If you don't grasp, there is no non-illusion. If even non-illusion does not arise, how can illusory dharmas be established? This is called the wonderful lotus flower, the regal Vajra gem of enlightenment. In this samapati, that is likened to illusion, transcend all study instantly. This Abhidharma, incomparable, is a single pathway through Nirvana's gate, taken by Bhagavans in all the 10 directions. When Ananda and the great assembly heard the unsurpassed compassionate instruction of the Buddha, the thus come one, this harmonious and brilliant Gaya verse, with its clear and penetrating wonderful principles, their hearts and eyes were opened, and they exclaimed that Dharma, such as this, had never been before.